What's up, guys? I am Sentiment, and I sincerely apologize for the lapse in posting. I'm going to give some quick channel updates when it comes to quality and scheduling. However, if you don't care and want to jump straight into the video topic and what I'll be talking about, here is the timestamp. Starting off with some quick channel updates. First, I want to say I don't know when this video is going to come out, but assuming I can squeeze it out before the first episode of the Thousand Year Blood War arc airs on the 10th of October, I would like to say I hope everyone is super hype. I've been keeping up with all the updates and trailers. I've actually been thinking about doing some trailer reactions, but decided against it because so much has been happening. But on to some channel updates, like I said. I've been super busy due to school, but on the bright side, I've been working on a budget recording studio in that time. Before, my schedule was extremely dodgy because I didn't have a great place to consistently record, but now that I have this little budget studio, I'm hoping that it'll solve some of my quality and scheduling inconsistencies. I am also working on getting a new computer and microphone to aid in greater production quality. It may be obvious to some of you, but for those of you who do not know, I do all of my recording and editing on my phone, and it is not the easiest thing to do. I found a nice editing software and I've been using that for now, but I eventually want to up my production quality and hopefully soon I can afford some new equipment. But for now, a budget recording studio is going to have to do. Another thing that has contributed to my lack of posting is my concerns with script quality. Most of you may know, but I do script my videos, but the quality is not nearly as professional as I'd like it to be, and I oftentimes spend days mulling over scripts when I should probably just post more content and learn and grow my quality that way. So that's something I plan to do really soon. Anyway, I hope these quick channel updates explain a few things. I've got around 2 to 3 videos scripted and 2 more being written, and I of course plan to give my thoughts about each Thousand Year Blood War arc episode that airs. I am new to YouTube and copyright stuff, so I don't know how to just flat out play the anime and react to it, or even if I can. So I'll probably do like reviews on each episode that airs. Anyway, on to the video. What's up? The first video I made on the channel relating to Bleach ranked my favorite Espada, but there was one notable entry missing, and that was the man Ulquiorra himself. At the time, I didn't want to include him on that video to spice it up, but I said I'd be interested in talking about him in a later video, and now is that time. Today, I'll be going over my general thoughts about Ulquiorra and my interpretation of his character design, as well as other opinions I have on him. This is a lax narrative kind of video that I plan to do more of in the future, so it's not a straight character analysis, but more of an appreciation video of sorts. Um, so yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Ulquiorra, the physical manifestation of nihilism condensed into the body of a young boy, has won the hearts of many in the Bleach community, including myself. A lot of people have Ulquiorra as their favorite Espada, which is why I've not yet talked about him. Back when I made my first Bleach video on the channel, I ranked my favorite Espada, but deliberately kept him out to spice things up a little bit, as I've said. But yeah, now is the time that I feel like I would, like to put some respect on Ulquiorra's name. So let's talk about him. Starting with his character design, it really encapsulates the idea that he represents. His clothing and skin are pale with black accents that nicely reflect the barren and, dare I say, bleached environment of Hueco Mundo, and honestly even the concept of nihilism itself, the belief in nothing having meaning or value in regard to human behaviors. However, what I quickly want to talk about are the teal-colored markings below his eyes that resemble the flow of tears, which hints at a sort of pain in that meaningless existence. I am not well versed on the concept of nihilism, I admit. I probably know as much as the next person, if not less, but from what I can tell, in a generalized, uneducated nutshell, nihilism centers around the meaninglessness of human ideas such as morality, values, and things of that nature, as well as the meaninglessness of human existence. This is interesting because Ulquiorra represents that ideology even in his base design, with the constant frown and pale skin, but also explores the existential dread and pain that could be associated with that ideology through these tear-like tattoos or markings. It's almost as if these markings are getting across the message that embracing the concept of nihilism is a stark contrast to everything the human spirit embodies and creates a soul marinating in the agony of its own existence, hence these tears. Despite Ulquiorra representing the concept of nihilism, he has a physical trait that represents the pain associated, which I think is really interesting, because to some degree, beneath the surface, he is human, and a lack of concepts like camaraderie, friendship, and love do indeed go against the nature of humanity and the values of the main characters in Bleach. And that's explored more throughout his arc. But it's almost like saying to Ulquiorra, alright, that's cool, you can embrace nihilism, but it's going to cost you because it goes against everything the human soul stands for. But excuse my pseudo-intellectual interpretation of what's likely a minor character feature. Let me know what you guys think of the tier markings below his face. Anyway, back to his base appearance. I have to say that I enjoy the contrast between his youthful look and his tremendous power. And interestingly enough, my favorite showing of that contrast was in one of his first appearances. As you know, Yami and Ulquiorra traveled to the world of the living and just started killing people, and generally giving the protagonists a hard time. Eventually, they were forced to retreat, but shortly before that, small 5'7" Ulquiorra, as a punishment for Yami's stupidity, hits Yami in the torso in a pretty casual fashion that forced Yami, this large 7.5-foot muscular grunt, to stumble back onto his knees in pain before lecturing him. The incredible amount of power contrasted by such a small frame was a super cool contrast to watch. Going on to his Resurrection design, pretty good. His hollow mask completes its shape and he gains these huge wings, and it's definitely a worthy design, but where things get interesting are when he goes into his second release, which by the way was an amazing moment. In this form, his body becomes more bat-like and slender, with his design embracing a more black tone, symbolizing the dread that he is supposed to invoke. But my favorite feature is that his hollow hole now seems to have markings consistent with bleeding. This, in my opinion, is the final evolution of what the tear marks symbolize. While the tears are, a bit of a casual reference to the suffering one can go through due to a lack of belief in human concepts like the heart, the bleeding hollow hole is a pretty clear reference to the despair, emptiness, and pain that Ulquiorra represents. An interesting thing to note is that throughout all of their fights, Ulquiorra is constantly attempting to break Ichigo's spirit, as if he derives pleasure from exposing others to the same depths of despair that he finds himself in, which could also be supported by the fact that when he fights, he tends to deal death blows where his own hollow hole is. The bleeding of the hollow hole can be seen as a expression of Ulquiorra's desperate attempts to break Ichigo's spirit and the spirit of anyone he encounters, honestly. And the visual of the bleeding makes it seem like his heart has been taken out of his chest by the concept of nihilism, and he can only really be satiated by doing the same to another. It's super interesting, but that's just all my opinion of Ulquiorra's various appearances and physical features. In terms of personality, I'll keep it brief. What's not to enjoy? I've always found cold, calculating characters extremely engaging and cool to watch, and Ulquiorra is one of my favorite examples of that in Bleach. He is no-nonsense, precise, and well-spoken, and Aizen could not have chosen a better second-in-command, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. He always seemed to be in control of the situation when he was on screen, excluding his fight with Vasto Lord Ichigo, obviously. All in all, his eye-catching design, cold personality, and immense power led him to having a really intimidating and cold presence, and I thoroughly enjoy his character. Closing out, I don't really have any critiques necessarily for him, but I will share a bit of a controversial opinion I have about Ulquiorra relating to his community. Now, from what I can tell, there's a large portion of the community that believe that Ulquiorra was the strongest Espada during the time that he was alive. I don't mean strongest as in highest attack potency, I mean strongest as in I've seen a lot of people say that he'd flat out beat all the other Espada in 1v1 fights. Whether that's true or not doesn't really matter that much. Just for this little tangent, I'm running with the idea that at least a good amount of the community, at least Ulquiorra fans, believe that he was the strongest Espada when he was alive, and I generally am just not a fan of that idea. One of the best moments in all of Bleach was when Ulquiorra was revealed to be the fourth Espada. I know this statement is memed a lot in general, but it genuinely did subvert my expectations and the expectations of a lot of the community, I'm sure. And it had a lot of cool implications. It painted a picture that a person didn't have to be the strongest in their group to be an amazing antagonist, and put a spin on the idea that antagonists like Ulquiorra always have to be the strongest at the time. And I think running with the idea that he was the strongest Espada kind of throws that subversion out of the window. Not to mention, in hindsight, it detracts from the impact of later Espada number reveals. There was just something so enticing about Aizen choosing the fourth Espada as his right-hand man, not because he was the strongest, but due to his cold, calculating personality. And there was something super cool, in my opinion, about the sheer amount of focus and screen time dedicated to hyping him up, for him just to be the fourth Espada, yet still maintain the same presence he had previously held when his rank was unknown. Ulquiorra being the big bad amongst pretty much all the Espada due to his character and ideology was a really strong trait, but only when paired with the fact that he was placed just fourth. I'm not saying that there's no narrative or scaling based pieces of evidence to support the fact that he was the strongest. I'm just saying if that's the case, it's not something I'm too huge on, because I enjoy the subversion and nuance that goes into his ranking at number 4, but that's just an opinion I have based off a few community reactions that I've seen, like articles, videos, and comments that say Ulquiorra was the strongest. So take that with a grain of salt. I could be completely wrong, and maybe most Bleach fans agree that Ulquiorra wasn't the strongest Espada during his time alive, but regardless, that was just a small rant about Ulquiorra's character. I didn't explain too much about his arc or anything, nor was it really that professional. I just gave some brief notes on things that I found interesting about him. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope to do more refined versions of these in the future. I am Sentiment, and I guess that is my cue.